Mr. Chairman, friends. First of all, let me congratulate all of you, the bright young people from several parts of the country, in getting admitted to this management school. You know, this is a wonderful plan. And you are now exploring what is possible to fulfill your potential to make a difference in the world. I wish you all a wonderful time here, a time of happiness, a time of great memories, a time of learning, a time of growth and fulfillment of your potential. And let me congratulate the Siva Sivani institutions for a remarkable job. When they founded these institutions in 1961, right? That was the age of innocence, the age of the public sector, commanding heights of the public sector. Some of you young people may have heard vaguely the Audi resolution on the commanding heights of public sector. That was the age in which we still had faith in our politicians, in our government. Within a year, at least some of these hopes and dreams were shattered thanks to the Chinese invasion of India. 1962 was a watershed year, our confidence was shaken. And subsequently, several years, we did not really know how to change track, how to learn from past mistakes. Previously, around the time this management school was started, that is when we belatedly changed track. Even now, we are not entirely understood, but as a country, we recognize that the state has a very definitive role, but not an expansive role. So even the history of this institution, or these institutions, it tells us a lot about the society. How dramatically things are changing generation after generation. We are now on the cusp of a fundamental change in our country and in the world. So I wish you all a wonderful night. Just a few very brief points on broader management issues. I don't want to go into technical details. Then let me spend a few minutes on the changing world. You know, in management there are two broad theories, theory X and theory Y. Theory X is like running a family in India. The father knows everything. Society follows the same pattern. The boss knows everything. All of us are messenger boys and girls. They follow orders obediently. This is very typical of India. But this is old-fashioned, dysfunctional, and counterproductive. The other theory is theory Y, that we are a team. We have a common goal. We have certain tasks to perform. We all have our innovation, our productivity, our new ideas to be synthesized. We achieve the task together, we rejoice in that, we own it. My first step into all of you is, wherever you work, whatever you do, for heaven's sake, don't mouth platitudes about democracy and freedom. Practice democracy even in small groups. Theory Y, inspiring people, raising their pride, enhancing their overall productivity, making everybody a partner to own the goal and to achieve the goals. That is the art of true management, very un-Indian. But if you want to make change, real change, be part of that change. The second broad point is, while big changes are necessary, oftentimes it's small changes that make big difference. But strategic changes, well thought out changes. Let me give a couple of small examples. One is, now we're talking monkeypox. We heard just this week that one person passed away in Kerala. And we also heard that in the Telugu states there was a case yesterday, day before yesterday. That reminds me of smallpox. I'm a medical doctor by training. You know, smallpox vaccine was known for a long time. In fact, the first vaccine humankind discovered was smallpox. A man called Jaya. He did it gone back. In fact, some of you may be, or many of you may be surprised to learn, the smallpox vaccination, that was not the word used in those days, originated from India. It was called variolation, variole is the virus. What they used to do is after smallpox has come, and these smallpox lesions, as we call them, they dry up. When they are no longer infected, they used to take out those dry scabs, make them into powder, and they used to inject into the body. Just the skin. They did not know why, but they discovered that could prevent further smallpox. This variolation, which was more than 1,000 years old, went from India to China, parts of China. From China, it went to Turkey. China, Central Asia, Turkey. From Turkey, the then British ambassador's wife picked it up. She took it to Britain. Some of the first people to be vaccinated in that form in Europe were the royal families. The Queen's children in Russia, the Tsarina's children, or the British royal family, and so on and so forth. Jenner perfected it. So it's known for a long time. In India, people of my generation, I don't think anybody here is of my generation, I'm probably the oldest here. There was a time when I used to be the youngest. But then that's what happens with time. But people of my generation, they all had smallpox vaccines. I don't know if some of you had the smallpox vaccines. People used to run away. The first vaccines that I had, for instance, I remember they used to insert a cylindrical needle and then twist it with lots of pain and a lot of bleeding and then infection. And oftentimes immunity did not take roots and people ran away because of all these consequences. In those days, if a vaccinator came to the village, people ran away. Then they had injectable. Again, some problems. Suddenly, somebody invented a very simple thing, no great technology. The basic technology is known as the tool for 1,000 years. They invented something called a bifork needle. A needle with two forks, two tongues. Just a stroke, and there are two streaks on the skin, and they put a couple of drops. Within 5 years, smallpox was eradicated from the globe. Now, relatively minor innovation brought about the most dramatic change for all humanity. The first ever disease eradicated from planet Earth. When I was listening to the chair of the function today, Dr. Sailesh, and the amusing anecdote about the doctors and all that, I was thinking of another small, real life story. Some 25 years ago, an MLA came to me, a Communist Party, a very respected man. He came to me with the story, sir, all these workers in the petrol stations, retail petrol bunks, they are all being cheated by the management, they are agitating, I wanted to support them. I said, what is the problem? He said, the petrol bunks typically do not deliver the quantity shown in the meter. There is a 10% difference. And they are given, the workers are given a certain bonus on the basis of the quantity sold. Instead of paying the bonus on the basis of what is charged, namely what is shown in the meter, they are paying the bonus of what is actually delivered in the petrol tax. The Communist Party gentleman is talking about that. I was aware of the problem that most of us are. As a district magistrate, I enforced these laws, the Social Commodities Act. Then I started wondering, why not take this up as a campaign for citizens' participation? Because my concern is how to involve citizens in making change happen. I said the real issue, Mr. So-and-so, is how do we stop this discrepancy between what is measured and what is delivered? Not how do you make sure that the workers get account to what is measured rather than what is delivered. He was very worried because his concern is only the small constituency of work. He said, no, sir, don't worry about that. But this is enough. I said, I'm sorry, that's not my job. I'm here to try and see what I can do to minimize this gap, to minimize short delivery. I'm fully aware of the issues as anybody else would be. and I particularly because I was a district magistrate. But I was trying to figure out what can we do as citizens instead of merely petitioning and appealing and grievances and begging. What can we do tangibly to actually change it? It took me this simple, silly issue took me a few weeks to go into depth. Then we discovered that the consumer has a right to ask the petrol station to fill any container of her choice. Typically, you go with a scooter or a car and say, please fill this tank. But you have a right to take a can and say, please put 5 liters in this. I was not aware, despite being an administrator, because no, this detail in our order. There are 2 problems in petrol delivery. One is short delivery, the other is adulteration. Adulteration is a more complex problem. You put hydrometer typically and then see the density and then issue the adulteration. But there is no proof, therefore you chemical test. These are not accessible to the people, even. Whereas, this is the right of a consumer. So I did something very simple. I got 5 liter and 10 liter and 1 liter containers made. I got them certified by the same department which is allowing this to happen in Dragon. I went to them and said, legal metrology department, those days fixed and matters department. I said, look, I want you to certify this is 1 liter. Verify if it's not, I change it. This is 5 liters, this is 10 liters. They had no choice but to certify. I mobilized the people in Hyderabad city on the 2nd of October. About a year after today, I think 1997 or 1998 probably, I'm not sure. I think 1997. I invited all the people to participate, hundreds of us, with some nice overalls and caps. We have to brand this. Went to the petrol stations. All I did was use the container and say, please fill this and give it the money. Once you know the volume that is delivered, not pressure because of the metering, and no suspicion because you feel that the volume filled in the tank is less than what is shown in the meter, but you can't do it. And then it's like a milkman giving you the milk. You may not be able to prove that there is adulteration with water. You certainly know the volume is less than what it should be. And for several weeks, I used to go around the state of Andhra Pradesh, combined state of Andhra Pradesh. Whenever I went there, one of the activities I did was go to the petrol station and do this work. Oftentimes I found the local MLA and is standing in attendance. Ask them what they are doing here. Shamefacedly used to say it's our petrol bunk. Because in those days all petrol bunks were owned by politicians. Remember license laws? That was not an act of patronage. So they were terrified that if in a public way we demonstrate the short delivery, that they would be in trouble. But what's more important is within 15 days, all the petrol stations in the Andhra Pradesh state, the meters were set right. Because the game was up. There was a simple, verifiable, quantifiable tool available in the hands of people. We can only aim at it, we can never reach it. But from 10% to 1.5% short delivery, I think it's a pretty decent victory for the whole country. That means every year, lakhs of crores of rupees are saved for the consumers. That is simple, practical experience. Small little action by a small group of thoughtful people, but meaningful action that is replicable. And the ripple effect is the whole country is changed in one sector. Never lose sight of that. So your challenge is to innovate. When 2G spectrum, 11 years ago, the big issue was 2G spectrum. Everybody said, arrest that fellow, jail that fellow, punish that fellow. It was usual, very emotional, volatile Indians. They're very, very exuberant. Where are after our CMs to shout slogans. We love to shout slogans. I said, very all this you do if you like. But you know, I know nothing much will happen. And once the news cycle turns, we'll forget about it, and these fellows will all escape. But let us take this as an opportunity to permanently end corruption, at least in this one area, by institutional mechanisms, not by slogan shouting and shurmachana, obstruction, all that stuff. It's romantic, we all love it.
So I put together some of India's finest people, about 10, 12 of the most eminent citizens of India. They all agreed within minutes. And we went to Supreme Court and said, ipso facto, prima facie, there is evidence that this is done improperly by abuse of power, without any competitive, transparent process, allocation of 2G spectrum. So please cancel all the licenses and order competitive bidding. Not only in this case, but henceforth in all cases of spectrum allocation. And as far as practicable in cases of all allocation of natural resources. The court agreed with us. For the first time, 122 2G spectrum licenses were cancelled. An auction was ordered. Right now, if you notice, currently also an auction going on as a continuation of that policy. Now you can say with absolute certainty, in spectrum allocation henceforth there is no corruption. So, levers have changed. Not too much of talk. Do not confuse a lot of activity with achievement. We all love to seem to be very active, very busy. Very, very busy. From morning to evening, there's no time to take a breath, eat food, or think. Don't confuse between the two. 20th century, as Einstein said, is characterized by perfection of means and confusion of ends. We struggle very hard. I want to be director of the institute, I want to be the professor, I want to be the district magistrate, secretary to government, MLA, minister, chief minister, prime minister. But the purpose of that we often forget. Perfection of means and confusion of ends. And in the corporate ladder also, ascend up the ladder, become the managing director or the next one, whatever. Nice, nothing wrong with the ambition. But for what reason? Never lose the sense of purpose. Never have confusion of ends with perfection of means. Within a corporate body or in the larger society. All this human organization, the endeavor of management, these complex systems and models, they became necessary because of the unique propensity of human beings to be able to think, innovate, and therefore to work in large groups because they have the faculty of speech and language and writing. And therefore, your learning is transferred to me. I was asking Ramanaidu, he is the big data. People like me keep hearing big data and we don't understand. But we learn from people who know. You transfer knowledge to your peers, and we transfer knowledge to the next generation. All your teachers, your professors, whatever they learned in life, in 2 years' time they transfer that knowledge to you. Whatever you learn subsequently is added extra. Therefore, you actually stand taller than your professors once you learn what they have to offer. Each generation is better than earlier generations. Not because individually we are great, but because of the unique ability to transfer knowledge across generations. And therefore there is an accumulation of knowledge, insights, that is uniquely human. And therefore you require management. Because you have the capacity to work in large groups, not kinship in a family. People who don't know each other, who never met, may have different ideas in life, different approaches in life, but they have one common purpose. How to bring them together, make them work together as a well-oiled machine. That's the purpose of management. That's why it's so important to think of theory Y, not theory X. There's nothing spectacular I'm saying, but just some commonsensical principles. These apply at every level: public management, private management, in a small organization, in a family, in a community, and of course in a commercial organization. Dr. Grace Money, she recited another one more line which to me is very important. Where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way into the dreary desert sand of dead habit. It's necessary for all of us as humanity, but particularly for Indians, because there is a lot of desert or dead habit in this country. There are great things in our tradition. There are also rotten things in our tradition. If we do not distinguish between the two, what is relevant, what is eternal, with what is ephemeral, what is inconsequential. If we don't distinguish these two, then we get confused all the time. I see many otherwise well-meaning people who have these logical conundrums. The capacity to discriminate Be rational in your approach. Apply evidence, logic, best practices, past experience. Never forget that. Let me conclude with a very brief overview of what's happening in the world. You all belong to an extraordinary generation. We already talked about Industrial Revolution 4.0. We all say these things without internalizing them, without really understanding what it means, because somebody said so. For the first time in human history, there is this synthesis, this fusion of three technologies. Many of you have a technology background. Engineering essentially is based on the principle of levers, the physical. Then came in the past 50, 60 years the digital revolution, electronics and the digital revolution. And then around the same time, the biological revolution, the genomic studies, the gene, understanding of what exactly makes our body tick and so on and so forth. There's nothing new in all these three technologies, where there are advances made every day. But for the first time, there's a synthesis of all these three. They're coming together. The physical, the digital, the biological. And that is a spectacular thing. The synergistic effect is unbelievable. Unbelievable. Yesterday I was watching on BBC a news item where two kids who were united at birth, who their brains were united, fused at birth, they were separated in a 27-hour surgery. A team in Britain, a team in Brazil, together, remotely working, they achieved this miraculous thing. See how much of synthesis there, biological, physical, and digital. One classic example, every day you see that. It was never possible before. And look at the energy sector. 30 years ago, the debate was peak oil production. My God, we'll run out of oil. What will happen to the world? The fear was not environmental concern, it was not about global warming. It was about consumption of oil is increasing, demand is increasing. Production right now is matching, but one day we will not be able to match production with consumption and the need. My God, what will happen to the world? Today, we have the technologies, they're economically viable. And we can actually envision a world without fossil fuels, not immediately. So today the challenge is transitional. How do you manage the transition from an oil and fossil fuel economy to a non-fossil fuel economy? It's going to take 10, 15, 20, 30 years. How do you manage the transition? It's a managerial challenge. It's no longer an impossible. It's actually a reality. 30 years ago, I would not imagine that. In those days, if we are looking at alternative fuels, it's because we fear that we will reach the peak oil production. There's no more oil to be explored or extracted. And this is something that we never thought would happen. It's happened with such dramatic rapidity. Within the next 5 to 10 years, I can guarantee you, there will be no petrol car or diesel car in the world. Because once the circumstances conspire together, the rapidity of change will be breathtaking. That's what happened when the world moved from the horse-ridden buggy to the motor cars sometime in the first decade of the 20th century. If you take the old pictures, the photographs of New York City, thousands of horse-ridden buggies, one little old-fashioned automobile somewhere in between. 5 years later, not a single horse-drawn carriage or automobiles. You know what the fear in those days was? When the horse-drawn carriages were the predominant thing, New York City and that's where they used to complain every day because horse dung, what do you do with that? In hostile, cold climate, winters, terrible stench, and mounds upon mounds of this refuge. Stink and rats and insects. Unbelievable. So those editorials, those people used to complain, what is this? 5-story high horse dung mound. Within 5 years, everything is up. So when technology and economic viability come together, the change is not going to be gradual, it's going to be precipitous, dramatic. And we are now in the cusp of that, in the energy sector. And we have another opportunity to challenge both. fewer and fewer people are producing more and more in the world. Take agriculture, the whole of humanity is fed by roughly 5% of the people. Outside of countries like India, how many people are engaged in agriculture? 5%? 3%. We are more than adequately able to produce to feed all the population, growing population in the world. Take manufacturing. Can anybody guess how many workers are there in the organized manufacturing sector in the world? Take a guess. In a population of 8 billion, global population, roughly 8 billion, how many people are working in manufacturing worldwide? Anybody?
2%. Percentage was 2%.
180 million people. 180 million people. That is just about 1% of India's population. It's amazing that 180 million people are manufacturing everything in the world that you and I use. From your garments to your bottled water, to this piece of paper, to this microphone, to this lectern, to the computers, to the cars, to everything put together, just 180 million people. There are of course several people in the low productivity, non-organized sector. But if you take the totality of it, if you convert it into an organized sector activity, it will not go by more than another 15-20 million. So this is going to get more aggravated. Fewer and fewer people will be able to produce more and more. Therefore the challenge as managers is, how do I deal with the rest of the population? Mahatma Gandhi always had one abiding concern. How can you give people productive employment? It's not merely an economic issue, it's also a human dignity issue. It's also a societal issue. If I don't feel that I'm contributing, I'm doing something worthwhile, productive, meaningful, I have no dignity, I have no self-worth. And that's a disaster for society. This was not a challenge that the world faced earlier, but your generation is going to face that. Even as in parts of the world, demographic changes are going to ensure that there are not enough workers. So side by side, at a global level, there are too many people without work, but adequate production. In some parts of the world, there are too few people who are capable of working. And how do you marry these two? It's going to be a great challenge. Youngsters of today are going to take 20-30 years later, have not even been created yet. The patterns of production are changing so dramatically in the world that the old-fashioned notion of what are the jobs that you might be able to fill, we don't even know. But the jobs are not about degrees by now, at least the management students who understand. Unlike many university students, unlike these third-rate political parties that propagate garbage. Just because I have a piece of paper called a degree, I'm not entitled to a job in government or private sector. Wealth creation is production of goods and services that are needed by everybody. A job is about that production of goods and services. The society fulfills its need by the production. In turn, the society nurtures these workers in the form of a job, a livelihood, a career. Without production of valuable, utilizable, useful goods and services, there is no sustainable job creation. The rest of it is a myth. Our political parties may propagate the idea you get a degree and see a job, as if I can manufacture a job without work, and as if tax money can be simply pumped into people's pockets without any outcome. That is the worst that we can do to ourselves. And therefore, how do we prepare for the future? In a rapidly changing world, changing with the rapidity that was never seen in human history. Let me conclude with one perspective. Neil deGrasse Tyson, I think, in one of his shows, he says, if you take the history of the universe as one calendar year, starting from January 1st and today on 31st December we are, all of our modern patterns of production, industrial revolution, technology, management, banking, everything has been happening in the last 1 second. In 365 days, each day with 86,400 seconds. All that we understand today as economic activity and management has been happening in the last 1 second. Most of it in the last quarter second. The changes that are happening are breathtaking, spectacular. They throw up challenges, but they give opportunities unprecedented. We live in the world of the best of all possible worlds, of immense possibilities. Have a sense of optimism. Challenges are going to overcome because you have the means, you have the technology, you have the resources, you have the management techniques. Do we have the excitement, the innovation, the leadership qualities to confront these challenges successfully? That's what we should learn here and apply later. I'm sure you will have wonderful lives personally, professionally, and you will recognize above all that personal gain and public good, they have to come together. One is not at the cost of the other. Just now we were having a brief chat, Rama and I. If you think that promoting public good is about personal sacrifice, giving up everything that is dear, that's a very silly, unsustainable notion. You have to care for the public good not because you are Mahatma Gandhi, not because you are a saint, but because no matter how successful you are, how wealthy you are, how wonderful your home is, the mosquito that bites the neighborhood urchin will certainly enter your home because you cannot prevent it, no matter what precautions you take. And if you transmit the dengue virus, or chikungunya, or the malarial parasite, or if it's a Culex mosquito, it could be encephalitis virus, and 100 other things. It could even be yellow fever. It's a matter of time that yellow fever will enter India because the Aedes mosquito, which was never there in India when we were medical students, today Aedes is endemic in India. Therefore, we have to control mosquitoes. It cannot be done alone. It has to be public good. Therefore, private gain and public good are not in conflict with each other. They have to be fused seamlessly. One cannot go without the other. And I hope you will realize increasingly that individual gain, fulfilling your potential, realizing your dreams is important. You don't have to apologize to anybody for that. But you must learn to fuse seamlessly this private gain with public good. Otherwise, the society is not sustainable. All of us pay a price. You have a wonderful car, you go on the roads of Hyderabad, and there is a 100 millimeter rainfall, that's enough to cause a flood in the city in some parts. And somebody gets down from the car innocently, you get into a drain hole. No matter how wealthy you are, how expensive your car, it does not only safeguard you from that drain. Or the traffic. Have a good time as students. Enjoy yourselves. Have the confidence. Look at the world, don't be merely bookworms. And prepare the future. Prepare for the future. With boundless optimism, with humility and yet confidence. Combining private good with public good. I wish you all the very best. Thank you.
Thank you.